Have you ever stopped to think about how numbers literally shape our world? I mean, from the apps on our phones to the drinks sitting in our fridge right now, data is absolutely driving the bus. But who is actually holding the steering wheel? Well, welcome to this explainer. Today, we're going to unpack the absolutely crucial difference between data-driven and data-inspired decision-making. We'll explore exactly why analytics is so powerful, and maybe more importantly, why the human element still remains the ultimate tiebreaker in any business strategy.
So here is our roadmap for today's explainer. First, decisions powered by data. Second, driven versus inspired. Third, a data-inspired triumph. Fourth, epic data failures. And finally, number 5, the human interpretation.
Okay, let's dive right into this. Section 1, decisions powered by data, the foundation.
If you're an analytics professional, you know your fundamental job isn't just handing over some massive, overwhelming spreadsheet. It's really about framing that data to help leaders make the absolute best choices. So the golden rule here is simply this. Data does not make decisions, but it improves them. Data is an incredible tool, for sure, and well-curated data brings immense value to the table. But at the end of the day, it is ultimately up to the human decision-makers to interpret it and actually take action.
Moving right along to Section 2, driven versus inspired, 2 approaches.
First up, we have data-driven decisions. Basically, this means strictly using facts to guide your business strategy. Now, if your data is sufficient, this approach can vastly improve your choices. But, there are some pretty serious built-in dangers here. We're talking about an over-reliance on historical data, a tendency to just completely ignore qualitative insights, and having major blind spots to biases in how that data was collected or analyzed in the first place.
There's this inherent tension right at the heart of the data-driven model. You are limited directly by the quantity and the quality of what's readily available to you. You can have absolute mountains of historical numbers, but if the quality of that information is poor, well, a purely data-driven choice is going to lead you right off a cliff.
To see what a healthy data-driven decision actually looks like, just imagine a company selling widgets. They want a new website layout. So for 2 weeks, half their visitors go to the old site and half go to the new site. When the analyst gathers the numbers, it's super obvious. The new layout yielded significantly more sales. Boom. It's a clean, confident, numbers-based decision. You'd swap to the new layout without even a second thought.
But what happens when the problem isn't that simple, right? That is where data-inspired decisions come in. Think of this as an evolution of the previous approach. It includes all the same considerations, but it adds a whole new layer of complexity. It creates this vital space for people to draw on related concepts, to give real weight to feelings and past experiences, and to consider those squishy, hard-to-measure qualities. It essentially helps you dodge the rigid pitfalls that strictly data-driven choices are so prone to.
To see how this data-inspired layering actually works in practice, picture a customer support center that's gathering customer satisfaction scores. A strictly data-driven manager is probably just going to look at that 1 to 10 quantitative score. But a data-inspired manager, they're going to read the actual written feedback. They'll personally interview the support staff on the floor. They use those hard numbers to inspire a much deeper, more human strategy to raise those scores over time.
Now, what's really interesting about this next part? Let's hit Section 3, a data-inspired triumph, PepsiCo.
This concept scales up beautifully to massive global corporations. PepsiCo literally ripped up their old playbook and mapped out a brilliant data-inspired strategy by putting consumers' needs first. Step 1, they established cross-functional workflows. Step 2, they set up really precise processes for making decisions based on data and tech. And Step 3, they invested heavily in a central cloud-based hub. They were actively supplementing their own internal data with external sources to massively expand their market reach.
As Shyam Venugopal noted about PepsiCo, when data flows together into that central hub, they develop a holistic understanding of the consumer and their journeys. It's honestly a massive triumph. By looking beyond raw, isolated numbers, they could actually anticipate intent and deliver a much more personal, valuable experience to their customers. All right, time for our rug pull moment. Section 4, Epic Data Failures, the Illusion of Perfection.
As powerful as analytics can be, the illusion of perfection is incredibly dangerous. We always have to remember that solid, completely accurate data, if it's interpreted incorrectly, can lead to absolute disaster. Take the number 200,000. That is the number of people Coca-Cola used in massive taste tests back in 1985. The results were crystal clear. Subjects preferred the taste of New Coke over Pepsi. So armed with this supposedly bulletproof data, Classic Coke was pulled off the market to win back their market share.
But, as you probably know, New Coke was incredibly unpopular. It cost the company tens of millions of dollars. So why did it fail? Well, the numbers were right, but the data was incomplete. They completely forgot to ask how customers would actually feel about their beloved classic Coke being replaced. It was a purely data-driven decision that completely lacked qualitative emotional insight.
Let's move to and see how this builds into an even more staggering mistake. Fast forward to 1999. NASA lost the Mars Climate Orbiter, a $125 million disaster. Now, you'd think NASA has the most complete, accurate data in the world, right? Well, they did. But they fell victim to a completely different kind of analytical failure.
Get this, the root cause was poor collaboration and communication. The orbiter's navigation team was running their force calculations using the International System of Units, specifically newtons. But the engineering team who actually built the spacecraft, they used the English engineering unit system, pounds. And somehow, no one realized there was a discrepancy between these two teams.
A NASA review board later discovered the issue was in the software that controlled the thrusters. The software controllers were making data-driven decisions to adjust the thrust based on 100% accurate data. But those decisions were completely ruined by inaccurate assumptions when interpreting that data. Because they failed to convert those units of measurement, the spacecraft literally burned to pieces in the Martian atmosphere. A simple conversion, born out of basic cross-team communication, could have prevented the entire loss. Which brings us to our final synthesis. Section 5. The human interpretation. Bringing it together.
Look, whether you're trying to sell soda or navigate the cosmos, complex analytics always tether back to human emotion and basic communication. So let's quickly run through our core takeaways here. First, avoid over-reliance on historical data alone. Second, evolve your strategy by incorporating feelings and qualitative experiences. Third, ensure complete cross-team communication so you don't end up using two different units of measurement. And finally, constantly validate your analytical assumptions. Making a decision with incomplete data is extremely dangerous, but sometimes even a small amount of accurate data, when interpreted correctly by human insight, can help you make an incredible business decision.
I want to leave you with this final, provocative thought to ponder as you look at your next spreadsheet. As we saw with NASA and Coca-Cola, the numbers themselves rarely lie. It is the interpretation that matters. Your data might be perfect, but are your assumptions?